we keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and it has been an extremely busy show, but we needed to take a few moments to sit back and talk about what is going on in the north side of Chicago. It is a rare time in Chicago sports where we could talk about stuff that's going on the field without having to mess up the front office and ownership. And to break down what is going on with the Northsiders, with the Chicago Cubs, is friend of the show. You can check him out over at Heartland and, of course, at Cubby's Crib. He is covering the Chicago Cubs like a blanket, along with some other great stuff. He is Rich Eberwein. Rich, welcome back, brother.
Always good to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you, brother, because the last time we did have you on, we were doing a preview of the Chicago Cubs, and now we get to actually talk about what we've seen on the field. They've left Sloan Park. They're at Wrigley. Currently back in Arizona as of this conversation. And, Rich, before we get into specifics of things I want to talk to you, I want to check in on vibes. Because right now, and you and I joke about all the time how every single day you're going to see the ups and downs with me whenever I come check in with you about the Cubs. But I think this season, there's been a lot of good, a lot of frustrating, though.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're lucky you don't see me at home when I'm watching these games. There's a lot of screaming and shouting. Luckily, I haven't broken anything yet. But
Yet.
Yeah, that's the key word. Because at the end of the day, the vibes, I think, are fairly good. You know, the team is pretty banged up, and they're going through some struggles right now with some specific players. But overall, their record is 10-7 right now, as of this time we're recording. So you can't really complain about that. And they're going into a series against the Marlins where they should pick up 2 to 3 games. So the overall performance of the team has been good. And I think that starts at the top with Craig Counsell, probably. He's setting the tone and getting the most out of these guys, even when they're going through struggles where, like, 2 of your main starting pitchers are banged up. They're off the team right now. Jameson Taillon's on his way back tomorrow, but Seiya Suzuki is hurt now. There's a lot of key injuries. Julian Merriweather, one of their key setup guys in the bullpen, but they're finding ways to scratch out wins, and even in those losses, those tough losses like last night against the Diamondbacks, they're competitive. Like, they're fighting. They only lost by a run, and it was a close game. Like, they had plenty of opportunities to win that game, and you could say the same against a couple games against the Padres and a couple other losses on the year. So they're being competitive. The vibes, I think, are overall pretty good.
So let's keep this in the context. This next question I'm going to ask, that it is only, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks into a season, but It seems like one of the pitfalls last season is what's kind of coming at them right now are these collapses by a bullpen, holding on to leads, and even in one case, having to scratch and crawl all your way back to a game. Is there a difference, you think? Is it just the Craig Counsell effect where you think they're going to ride the tide and they're going to even out when they get a little bit healthier with a better manager than last year? Is that a concern long term? Maybe short term it is fun for fodder for sports talk radio, but in legitimate scouting of an entire season, is that something you're worried about, that it's a trend you saw a lot last season and it's seeping its way a little bit into at the start of this year?
Yeah, I think as time goes on, I think things will shake out when these starting pitchers come back like Steele and Taillon. Like, that will take pressure off the bullpen and take them out of more key situations where they need to get 3 clean outs, right? Like, if you got, it's key if Taillon comes back and it is the guy that we saw a little bit, there was like a stretch of 5 starts last year where he was dealing. Like, we need that Taillon back. We need Justin Steele healthy. And, last time I was on the show, I said he was going to be gunning down the Texas Rangers. It kind of happened. After that, yes, it was just short-lived, but, he looked good for that. And thankfully, it's not an arm injury.
Big time. That we're seeing all over baseball.
Knock on wood, it's not an arm injury, but he's supposed to be throwing a bullpen this weekend, so hopefully he comes back. So I think as time goes on, hopefully those guys will come back and take pressure off the bullpen. And at the end of the day, there's a couple guys in the bullpen that just need to be pitching better. Like, Hector Neris needs to pitch better. That one outing, I think it was the first game against the Diamondbacks, where he loads the bases, walks 3 guys, and thankfully, from a heroic play by Dansby Swanson, was the only reason that the Diamondbacks didn't tie up that game. It was just lucky, but, like, he's got to pitch better. You're paying him $9 million to be your main setup guy, and he hasn't fulfilled that so far. And the other guy is Adbert Alzolay. Like, he's got to keep the ball in the yard. The entire 2023 season, Alzolay gave up 5 home runs. He's already got 3 this year.
Wow.
And same can be said with blown saves. He had 3 blown saves the entire 2023 season, where he was the closer for the majority of the year. already has 3 this year. Like and it's all on those home runs. He's given up 3 key home runs, so like just gotta keep the ball in the yard, gotta be better, man.
So you actually, Rich, that is over at Cubby's Crib, has a new article out. You guys should check it out. 3 struggling Cubs players who need to get it together soon. That's 3 struggling Cubs players who need to get it together soon. You mentioned Hector Neris, and in your article, it's Cody Bellinger. I want everybody to go to the website to actually look at your breakdown. But there's one name here that is really kind of the highlight of everything that's going on right now. It has the most concern for Cub fans beyond the health issue, and that is Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, man. Kyle Hendricks, I hate to say it, he's looking a little bit washed up out there. He started against the Diamondbacks last night, and this is his 4th straight start out of the gate of giving up 5 or more earned runs. And it's looking like he's just not fooling batters. He doesn't have command of his pitches. When he's missing over the heart of the plate, and they're making him pay for it. You know, his stuff isn't good enough to miss that hard. You know, he needs command. It's always been the case with Kyle Hendricks. He needs command of his pitches for him to be effective, and it's just not working out right now. He's getting knocked around really hard, and I don't know what they should do, because Tyone's coming back, and Ben Brown is the guy. He's the odd man out. You know, I think they're going to give Kyle Hendricks more leeway. I hate to say, like, Ben Brown's pitching way better, but I think they're going to move Ben Brown into the bullpen.
Okay.
I would keep him up. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I would keep him up and then maybe send Daniel Palencia back down. Okay. Just because you need more firepower in the bullpen right now. And he can be that guy, can give you 2 or 3 innings, Ben Brown, of straight gas. You know, he throws like 97, 98. But
you know, it's funny. Remember a few days ago, you and I were talking about comps of pitchers to other sports, and we really couldn't. And I kind of landed on offensive line more for the idea of depth.
Yeah.
You can have an awesome left tackle, you can have an awesome left guard, right tackle, whatever, but if they get hurt, when they get hurt, in the volatile sport that is the NFL, baseball's like that for your arms.
Yeah,
you need, especially with volatile bullpens and bottom of the end rotations, you need to have enough arms that go out there and can eat up innings, can get batters out, and I think for the Cubs, Kyle Hendricks not pitching well, just being blunt about it, having a bad start to a season, having injuries with Tyone to start, and with Justin Steele early on in the season. You have guys like Wicks, who is having a great season when it comes to Ks, Ben Brown coming up, and it will help the team if Justin Steele comes back mid-May in okay form. He doesn't have to be the ace to start, but if he comes back and is a good pitcher, that's solid. Yeah. If Tyone comes back and is a pro pitcher, that's more than you can ask for, because you have Imanaga at your 3, because that's the one thing that at Major League Baseball, you really have to take it season by season, is your pitching. It's just so, especially your bullpen, it's so volatile, it's so season to season, it's so, you talk about vibes, it's the ultimate vibes, and we always praise the pitching lab of the Chicago Cubs. Kyle Hendricks, unless he's hurt, which to me, this is horrible to say, but it's probably better for Hendricks if he were hurt.
Yeah, it'd be better for the team from a roster standpoint.
100%.
And that's the silver lining of this, is they do have a lot of guys, but that's also the reason where it's like, how much leash are you going to give him this year? Like, I understand.
Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I understand he's a veteran and he's a Cubs legend, and the stuff that he's done for this city is, I can talk about it for hours.
Right.
But at a certain point, it's like, all right, this guy's getting shelled every time he's going out there. Like, people brought up the fact that he always has a slow start and starts picking it up in May and June, but it's like, this is the worst start of his career out of the gate so far. So, like, when you're trying to be competitive and you're trying to win ball games and make the playoffs this year, how long are you going to let him go? The other thing is, though, it's like, what do you do with him, though?
That's okay. So that's what I'm. So what is the leash, and what do you do with him then? If I'm putting you on the spot and I'm saying, okay, he's going to have a couple more games just based off of respect and reputation, but what do you do? How long is the leash, and what do you do after that?
I think the leash is as long as it takes for Justin Steele to come back, because Jameson Tyone's going to come back. Ben Brown will be out of the starting rotation, whether they send him down to AAA or put him in the bullpen. I think Ben Brown is moving out of the rotation when Tyone comes back. That gives Hendricks until Justin Steele comes back. You know, barring any other injuries or anything, I think that is his timetable. So he's got about a month, right, to get it together. And if he's still pitching badly and giving up multiple earned runs a game and not looking sharp and not having command of his pitches, Justin Steele's going to take his spot, I think, and then you either move him to the bullpen or I don't think you can send him to AAA because of his contract. Yeah. Phantom IL stint, I don't know. You got to move him to the bullpen. Like, I know his stuff doesn't play out of the bullpen because he's just a soft tosser, and if he doesn't have command, it's not going to be worth it. But it's like, what else do you do? You know, you can't have him starting if his stuff isn't playing off when he's starting. So
in June at Wrigley Field when it's warm out, and he gets somebody who's supposed to have the ball on the ground,
it's going to be even more ugly.
Yeah, exactly. And because you brought up the Phantom IL, which you see all the time in baseball, circling back really fast to the injury thing about Kyle Hendricks, to me, I think it's best case scenario if we find out that his oblique hurts, his forearm hurts or something, because the opposite means if it's not that it's the stuff is gone. Yeah. That's a problem. So I think we would rather hear that, he's not feeling right physically, opposed to be like, no, he feels good. It's just that to me is a big worry, because at this age, with the type of pitcher he is, you've nailed it on the head. The idea of like, this is not a power pitcher. This is somebody who had to be an artist out there. They called him the professor for a reason. He had to be the smartest person on that field every single game. And if he not only can get it past you because he's never had speed, but there's no movement, it's a launching pad.
Yeah, it's not good. And, we're going back to what we were talking about earlier, is like, thankfully, these young players, these young pitchers that they have are studs. Like Javier Assad, Jordan Wicks, and Ben Brown are pitching like studs right now. And that's all you can ask for when injuries hit your starting rotation like they did to your key guys. So, and then you also have Cade Horton coming at some point this year, I would assume. So that's the silver lining, is they have guys who can come up and take the spots of a guy like Kyle Hendricks. And unfortunately, we're seeing the twilight of his Cubs career, I think. Like, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. I was telling you off the air yesterday, like, he's getting paid $16.5 million. There's no way you can justify paying him, giving him a new contract of that caliber, when you have guys like Ben Brown, Cade Horton, Jordan Wicks, and Javier Assad here, young and ready to pitch in the starting rotation at a high level.
Looking at the way the team plays now, looking at the way the division is, we're starting to kind of see a little bit. We've played enough baseball where we're starting to see some trends. I believe they are, but do you believe they're going to be super active come trade deadline this year? Does it have that vibe already? We're like, they didn't address everything they needed to this offseason. They were building their foundation to kind of see what they're going to be. I think they're going to be very active in the next few months.
I think, especially in the reliever market, they need help in the bullpen. Especially with Julian Merriweather gone and guys like Alzolay struggling early and Hector Neris, like, they need more help. They need more guys you can go to in the 7th or 8th inning and say, hey, we need to protect this 1 or 2 run lead.
You can't have Leiter out there already by May with his arm blown out because you've used him for 7 straight weeks. Like, you can't have that now. There's only so much a great manager can do. Friend of the show, Rich Eberwein, he has an article up at Cubby's Crib. 3 struggling Cubs players who need to get it together soon. You can also check out his stuff at Heartland. And I think for me, the last thing I want to see, now that we've seen Craig Counsell out there, we've seen what they're kind of doing with this roster, who's been playing, who's not, kind of what we feel for performances. I want the front office now to step up and do right by this team. We've always talked highly of, good or bad, going through the entire tenure of this front office, this ownership. I do believe if they believe they have a winner, they're going to invest. Yeah. They have to, though. Like, I want Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins and for Tom Ricketts to give them the green light that this team can win the NL Central if they're in position to do so, get them the help they need, and do right by Craig Counsell. I know you're paying him a lot of money. They didn't always do right by David Ross when it came to roster construction. So I think in this case, I want them to pull out all the stops for Craig Counsell.
Yeah, if they're in a position come the trade deadline to be in the playoffs or make a run, definitely, I think the main concern right now is probably more bullpen arms. I don't really see them getting any hitters. Like, I don't know who do they need? Like, unless somebody goes down and has a horrible injury or something, like, they need arms. They need bullpen arms. Like, and they don't need rotation arms either. Like, they just need guys in the bullpen that they can turn to and say, hey, we need 3 outs right now. I'm thinking Michael Kopech maybe.
So what? And that's been a rumor out there whether or not it'll be Alzolay or other names, but that's what I'm saying, though. I want them to be active. I want them to be aggressive, and I trust them to be smart. So I don't even have to put that as like a requiem that I need from them. I know they're going to be smart. I just need them to be aggressive and active.
I think they will be. I mean, they were last year. They went out and got the best hitter on the market last year.
Sure.
Jamer Candelario.
Yeah.
They got a reliever at the deadline last year. Am I tweaking?
But
I'm pretty sure they did.
But I think a lot of it, too, we mentioned it, was the roster construction in a whole, and then having a manager like David Ross. I think they entrust, and we've mentioned this a bunch, they entrust Craig Counsell. So just give him the right tools, and he'll build you a masterpiece.
Yeah,
That's all it comes down to.
I think they will.
So, Rich, this was awesome, my boy. We got a lot more coming up here on the Sports Cubicle. Make sure you're going to Cubby's Crib. 3 struggling Cubs players who need to get it together soon. Rich Eberwein, and he's all over the universe. We'll tag him in it. Rich, thank you so much for another fun checkup on the Chicago Cubs. We'll have you on in a few weeks for a May checkup.
Looking forward to it. Hopefully, Justin Steele will be back gunning people down.
That can only hope, and hopefully it's a nice sunny weather at beautiful Wrigley Field. But until then, make sure you guys keep it right here. We got a lot of news coming up about the NBA, the Chicago Bulls, the White Sox, and so much more on this edition of the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.